All right, let's dive in. Today, we're tackling the Quran. And I know it can seem a little daunting if you're new to it,
Yeah, definitely.
but that's why we're here,
Yeah.
right? Think of us as your Quran guides for this deep dive. We've got these audio snippets, mostly stories and teachings,
Mhm.
to give you a sense of how the Quran views its own role, like in this life, but also the afterlife, how it believes it can save you, basically.
And it's fascinating how it doesn't offer like a simple one-size-fits-all answer.
All right.
It's more about this weaving together of actions, beliefs, changing who you are, like at your core.
So it's more than just like do good things and you're good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But doing good is definitely a part of it. Like in Surah 8, there's this story about the people of Moses. They're told to settle in a city, live righteously, and they're promised forgiveness.
So good actions equal forgiveness.
It's a big theme throughout the Quran. God rewarding good behavior, holding those who are unjust accountable.
So what about the people who don't follow that, who don't choose that path?
Right. Well, the Quran contrasts, those who choose to believe and obey with those who reject the message.
Right.
Like, again, Surah 8, there's the story of those who disobeyed and faced consequences, right? Their disbelief, kind of like the Pharaoh, leads to their downfall.
It's interesting too how, I mean, thinking about the Pharaoh and then, those stories of past civilizations, like in Surahs 8 and 30, the people of Ad and Thamud,
Yeah.
they're pretty intense warnings.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you read those and it makes you wonder, are these just stories or are they something more?
Right. They definitely make you think. And the Quran is actually very clear about this. These stories aren't just for entertainment. They're meant to provide guidance and wisdom, especially for those looking to understand that path to salvation.
It's like they're holding up a mirror, right?
Yeah,
Like, look what could happen if you ignore these lessons.
exactly. It's about learning from the past and then applying it to our lives today. But it's not just about outward actions either, right? There's this whole other layer.
I noticed that, yeah. Like, I kept seeing Surah 4 pop up, and it was all about internal change.
Yeah.
Like controlling your desires, purifying your soul, even that emphasis on faith over worldly possessions. It's like a whole other dimension of being saved.
And this ties into a really important concept, intention. Like, even giving to charity, the Quran says, it has to come from a genuine place to be accepted by God. There's a strong message against being a hypocrite.
So you can't just go through the motions.
It can't just be for show, right? Your heart has to be in it. Your actions have to reflect that sincere desire to follow God's path.
I noticed, too, there's a lot about patience and perseverance, especially when things get tough.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's a big theme. So many verses encourage believers to remain steadfast, even when faced with hardship or ridicule. The Quran doesn't sugarcoat the challenges on the path to salvation, you know what I mean? It's about resilience. It's about understanding that faith is a journey. It's not just like a destination.
Speaking of destinations, the Day of Judgment that features pretty prominently, especially in Surah 30, and it's pretty vivid, a
Yeah,
very vivid picture.
it is. And the Day of Judgment, it's really central to how the Quran views salvation. Like, it's this moment of truth where you're held accountable for everything you did in this life.
Right.
And the Quran doesn't leave any room for doubt about how seriously it takes this event.
No, it doesn't. I mean, the language is so powerful, talking about the scales of justice and those who are facing punishment and those entering paradise. It's hard not to be moved by those descriptions.
And that emotional impact, it's intentional. Like, the Quran aims to stir something deep within you, to make you think about the choices you make and their eternal consequences. It's not all doom and gloom, though, right? Like, the Quran also describes this incredible beauty and peace that awaits those who earn paradise.
Yeah, that's true. It's almost like the Quran is a guidebook in a way,
Mm-hmm.
laying out these principles, these stories, like a roadmap for this life
Mm-hmm.
and how to prepare for what comes next.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's constantly reminding us of its role as a guide and also offering these warnings, especially for those seeking salvation.
Yeah, and speaking of guidance,
Mm.
there's this verse in Surah 24 that really stuck with me. It talks about how following the straight path, it means not letting your desires distract you from remembering God.
Oh, yeah.
That's powerful, in a world with so many temptations pulling us in different directions.
Oh, absolutely. The Quran acknowledges how strong those desires can be, right? But it reminds us to prioritize our connection with God. It's about aligning our will with His.
It makes me think about all the prophets and the challenges they faced. I mean, rejection, persecution, threats to their lives,
Right.
yet they remain so steadfast in their faith.
Yeah, their stories are meant to inspire us. The Quran reminds us that true believers will face challenges. But we have to remain steadfast in our faith, knowing that God is with us.
It's not just about passive faith either. Like Surah 9 calls on believers to actively strive in the cause of God. It's about taking action, engaging with the world, standing up for what's right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about living those principles of justice and righteousness in our everyday lives, making choices that reflect our faith, even when it's tough.
And the Quran also talks about community too, right? Like Surah 4 specifically emphasizes unity among believers and warns against dividing into sects. It's a powerful message that we're stronger together.
Oh, it's so crucial. The Quran envisions this community, right? Where they support each other, uphold the truth, and work to build a just and compassionate society. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and working towards a common goal.
And that sense in community, it even extends beyond those who share our beliefs. There are verses about treating all people with kindness and respect, regardless of their faith.
Yes, the Quran advocates for justice and compassion for everyone. It condemns oppression and injustice, no matter who's involved.
That's such a powerful message today, you know. With all the division and conflict in the world, it's a reminder to approach those who are different from us with empathy and understanding.
Exactly, building bridges instead of walls.
And remembering that ultimately, we're judged on our own actions, not the beliefs of others.
That's key. The Quran is constantly emphasizing personal accountability. Each of us will stand before God and answer for our choices.
It really is about focusing on our own spiritual growth, striving to live a life that's, well, aligned with our values.
And remembering that our actions have consequences, both in this life and the next.
This idea of accountability really is at the heart of the Quran's message of salvation, isn't it?
It reminds us that we're not just drifting aimlessly through life, you know what I mean? Our choices matter. Our actions have real weight.
It's daunting in a way, but also empowering. Like we have the ability to shape our own destiny.
Yeah, and the Quran gives us the guidance and the warnings we need to make those choices, the ones that lead to a fulfilling life and a hopeful afterlife.
It really makes you think about the bigger picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Not just what we want right now, but the legacy we leave behind.
Yeah, it's a shift in perspective. The Quran encourages us to view our lives in this much larger context, one with eternal implications.
So after diving into these excerpts, what image or concept about salvation in the Quran has stuck with you?
For me, it's that balance between God's justice and mercy. We've talked about the consequences, but there's also this beautiful thread of forgiveness running through it all.
Yeah, it's everywhere. So many verses about how much God can forgive those who truly repent.
Right, like no matter what you've done, there's always a way back if you're sincere. It makes you wonder, though, I mean, thinking about that balance between justice and mercy,
Yeah.
what does the Quran say about good deeds outweighing bad deeds? We haven't really touched on that, have we?
That's a really good question, actually, and one that deserves more thought. Something for our listeners to explore further, maybe. It could really help them understand the intricacies of this faith.
For sure. And I mean, it's important to remember we've just barely scratched the surface here. This whole deep dive, it's just a glimpse into this vast and nuanced text.
Right. There's so much more to discover.
Yeah.
Exactly. So keep exploring, keep those questions coming, and keep an open mind. You never know what insights are waiting out there.